Alrighty. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Purpose Served podcast episode. We are at episode 101, and we have a special guest today. And this is going to be a conversation that's like a blessing in disguise. I know it is. There's going to be gems being dropped by Robin, who is our guest. He's a author, musician, a public speaker, and he's won multiple awards. I put that all in the description for anybody that's tuning in, that's tapping in, and all of his information will be in the description below. And the one thing that I do want to start off with this podcast is talking about the importance of like somebody's like upbringing and how much that can possibly affect the trajectory of somebody's life and how you can like overcome that. So how I'm going to start this off is by asking you about what instrument did you play and how did you get into music and becoming a musician?
Yep. Well, thanks for having me on the show, Daryl, and congratulations on hitting the 100 episode mark. Last episode, I know that's a big deal for you, and I'm just grateful to be on episode 101. All right. So in terms of music, right? So I started out as a rapper. Like that was my bread and butter. That's what I loved. That was a big part of my identity, honestly. Even as a young child, the first time I was exposed to hip hop music, I must have been in the third grade. And right then, when I heard that strange sound, I was like, that's me. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to be. And that's who I am. And as I got older, I eventually went into music production and taught myself how to play the keyboard. Nothing. I'm not like classically trained or anything, but I can play keys a little bit. And then from there, I went through a transition in my career where I was kind of shifting away from music totally. And God just kind of kept creating opportunities for me to help people with social media. They saw that I had a pretty good grasp on it, and I was helping some other organizations independently, and people just kept asking me for help with that. And that's what kind of led me down the path of becoming a marketing professional.
Was it hard to like let go of the music aspect of your life?
It was. I think like hip hop is something that's in my veins. You know what I mean? So it's like I couldn't stop being hip hop even if I tried, and even when I present myself in a way that might not equate to like hip hop type, behavior or presentation, is still inside of me. So I can't say that the music I ever really let go of the music. It's just in terms of like a career path, like pursuing it like as a profession, trying to make money off of it, trying to get placements, all of the things that I did for so many years. That part of my journey has ended. My children joke with me. They'd be like, my stage name back in the day used to be Webified. My kids be like, Webified is dead. Like he's dead. You know what I mean? So I'll be like, a beat might come on down. I'll be like, yeah, y'all want to hear something? They'd be like, no. So my kids remind me that, that's that era and that season of my life is gone. But I would say I do have friends who call me here and there for like, mercenary work. They'll be like, yo, I need a verse. Can you send me a verse? And then I'll do that for friends.
Okay. And I know from the tech talk that I did watch, which is like when I very first seen it, man, I was just like, I was moved by it. I was really moved by it. I was moved by the vulnerability that you like put out there on a world stage, and also like you had a tough upbringing, man, and you overcame a lot to get to where you are right now. And the one thing that I recently just spoke on is succumbing to what's in front of you rather like versus overcoming. And it's way easier to succumb to a lot of things because it's like if you haven't personally experienced the other side of the grass being greener, you it's hard for you to physically know that you can actually like get there. So if you want to like speak on like some of the challenges that you was experiencing like growing up, whether it's internally with your family, friends, and all of that, what what was that the pivotal thing that hit you growing up that you knew like I have to overcome like these shortcomings that I'm going through, even though that it was like no glimmer of hope most likely around you.
Yes. I'll start by saying that even as a child, I was a bit of an explorer.
Mm,
And I feel like, where I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, it was a very territorial space and time, right? For example, like I lived on a block called Caton and Ocean in Flatbush, Brooklyn. If you walked a block or two up towards Woodruff or Crook Avenue, it was almost like you were in a different world. The people were different. There might
mm,
be conflicts between people from certain blocks. So you talk about people succumbing versus people overcoming, right? Many people couldn't think about going beyond the block, right? So like not only am I like not going to Manhattan or like the Bronx or London, I'm not crossing the street because this is kind of where I am and this is my territory. So I grew up in that space. And so that was already embedded in kind of who I was. But I always challenged it. I always wanted to know, like, yo, what's around the corner? I was the kid that was like, we treated back alleyways like our playgrounds. We would hop over fences, go from one building to the next, be on the wrong blocks, get chased by other kids from other neighborhoods. Like that was like my whole upbringing was exploration. So the challenges that I faced as a young child, I grew up with immigrant parents who at the time I didn't know we were struggling, but eventually my mother became a small business owner and started doing pretty well. But her and my father split. So I went from having a two-parent household to overnight being raised by my father, who I love him, but with all due respect, he didn't know how to raise a kid. He never had to do it. He was almost like my buddy. You know what I mean? It was like we were in a buddy cop movie and I was the kid with a grown man and like just kind of living our life. He worked odd jobs. We lived in very like, low level living conditions. For example, in the city, they have these really old buildings, and at the bottom of most of these buildings, they have like basement levels. And on these basement levels, they're like little units and rooms that back in the day, like servants would live or they use for storage and things of that nature. And most of my elementary school years were living in rooms like that. So we didn't have our own bathroom. We would have to like leave the room and go out into like a garbage filled basement hallway to walk to a dirty bathroom to like use the sink to take a bath. You know what I'm saying?
man,
So all of that at the time, Daryl, even though I had a glimpse of a two-parent home, I didn't understand that we were in poverty or that we were struggling. So fast forward as I got older and kind of became more aware of what was happening, and then eventually going into adulthood and becoming a parent, that the switch for me, which I believe that was the question you asked, like what was the switch? The switch didn't happen for me until much later in life, 2010 to be exact, because 2010 was the year that my son was born. And the year that my son was born, but all before that, I was in strict survival mode. It was just like, I have
man,
to do what I have to do so I can survive, so I can eat, so I can take care of myself. I was living a one-person selfish lifestyle so I could just get by. But when he was born, that was the switch, because what I told myself is I will never have him experience what I experienced as a child.
man, that's deep. That is something that I want to say like for me and my upbringing, it's like very very similar because my mom was like the same way when she had me. Um, I grew up in North New Jersey, and that was like it was essentially like the same thing for her, where it was
That's
just
tough.
like very tough environment. Um, but it's something about having bringing your own child into the world that switch comes on, and it's just like man, a lot of things has to change, man. A lot of things has to change, and what would you say was the thing that you started doing once you had your first child that started shifting you into the direction that you started like are in right now?
I started to seek stability. So before then, like I said, I was like a one-man show. I was doing music at the time. I was like traveling all over Europe, helping to grow a hip hop organization. I lived in Paris for 2 years. Like I was living this vagabond, like, stay at this friend's house over here. At one point I was living in a mansion in Saragossa, Spain for 4 months with a whole cellar full of wine. There was wine, Dara, from like 1972 all the way up to the 90s. And they said you could have whatever you want, throwing parties, like living my best life. And when my son was born, I knew that stability would be the key for me to prevent him from having to experience any of the challenges that I had to endure as a child. So that was the thing that I was after. And it started with being gainfully employed, right? Like getting a job. Before then, I would like me making a few hundred dollars or a few $1,000s from a show, and then budgeting out, okay, I got $2,000. This $2,000 got to last me for so-and-so. That mindset had to go. I needed like benefits. I needed I needed to make sure he was good to go. And that's really what got me on this path where I am now, is his birth leading to me seeking stability.
Man, how was that experience like living in Europe, man? That's something like
wow.
It was crazy. Like that's a crazy thing to give up, man.
Yeah,
like,
it was a good time. Like, and one thing, like, I don't think my kids, especially my 15-year-old, he can't wrap his head around it. He's like, well, what were you doing? And honestly, I was just like, I was doing my best to represent hip hop, right? So I was like doing whatever hip hop was doing at the time. So at the time, this is kind of the era of, Jay-Z, N-Words in Paris, like it was that time. So I was like in Paris.
Man, so around like 2009, 2010, like around that time.
It was a whole run. It was probably like the 2 years was probably from 2004 to 2005.
Okay.
But the run was probably all the 2010s. From 2000, I think I landed in Europe for the first time in 2003, and then all the way up until probably 2000. My last trip was probably 2014 or 2013. But at that time, it wasn't the same intensity because I had a kid. But when I could go, I would book a show and I'll be like, all right, well, book 4 more. And then the promoter would just book a bunch and I would just go out there for a few months. At the time, my job, they were flexible with me. They would be like, all right, go do your thing. And when you come back, you still got your job. But honestly, it was an amazing time, man. And I'm confident that experience of like being a world traveler, like I said earlier, being an explorer, like there was a time in Paris where there were riots, you know what I mean? Like I want to say sometime in the 2010s, there were these wild riots where police and people in the projects were like going to war. They was taking Molotov cocktails and throwing them at the police cars. It was wild. And I was out there. So I was like, so people was like, oh, they thought I was like by the Eiffel Tower, eating bread and cheese. I was in the hood with cars. Yeah, with cars with like on fire. And I remember being like, people don't even know, they like, it's real out here. So again, I'm confident that experience impacted my worldview and I wouldn't see things the way I see them if it wasn't for that experience.
Did you get a culture shock when you first got out there? Like when you first landed in Europe, was there like, it hit you like, this is totally different from the world that I came from?
Oh yeah, me and my man Zone. Big shout out to my man Zone, the North Star. We first went out there to London. So we met this guy. The guy booked us some shows, and he said you could stay with me. And at the time, one of my people gave me and Zone 2 first-class tickets to go buddy passes on a United flight, so we could like go when we want and come back when we want. So we went first class. We was like drinking champagne. Everything was fine. Got off the plane, still feeling good. I must have had in my pocket, Daryl. I must have had like $300 or $400 in my pocket to my name. Like I had like $300-$400 to my name, a backpack full of CDs and my clothes, ready to like take over the world. Went into an exchange to exchange my dollars for British pounds, and that's when it hit me. I give the guy, I must have gave him like, I don't know, like 100 American dollars. And then he gave me back, I want to say like 50 or 60 50 or 60 at the time might have been the exchange rate, or maybe 70. Any way you look at it, it didn't dawn on me that money was different. So when I handed him my 100, I expected to get 100 back. But that's not how it works with currency exchange. So when he hit me, I was like, wait, hold up. I think you made a mistake. You know what I'm saying? And that was the moment that it hit me. Like, I got to be careful because I don't know everything. And that's when the culture shock really stood out.
Man, that's like night and day. It's something about like situations like that, which I commend you for. A lot of people, that's like a very, very challenging thing to go outside of their comfort zone, man, and enter into like a space that they never been before, because they're so used to their own norm. They're so used to their own comfortable, even if it's to their detriment. And especially like as soon as you said Flatbush, I'm like, Dad, I'm already knowing what's up. You know what I'm saying? But in an environment like that, you have people, and especially like all across America, all across the world, and the low income environments, a lot of people knowing that they living in hell, they much rather stay there rather than take the risk and living out their dreams, no matter what the uncertainty is. You know what I'm saying? And you have to have like a lot of people that was back at home that was telling you like you're crazy.
They told me I was crazy.
Yeah,
they did. That you nailed it. And one of my best friends, I'll share a story because I love him dearly. His name is Shamal Davis. I keep this right here. He passed away last year. God rest his soul.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and we were in a team together, and I never forget it. I wrote songs about it and everything. But at the time when I went to Europe, Shimmy was telling me, he was like, yo, he's like, whatever you're doing over there, you could do right here. You know what I'm saying? And it always stayed with me, you know, but I knew that I had to take my path, you know. So me and him, we didn't have an argument or anything about it, but it was definitely something. He was like, yo, you don't have to go to Europe. You can blow up right here. But for me, I was like, if I got the opportunity to do it in Europe, why would I not do it? You know what I'm saying? So, rest in peace to Shimmy, man. I love that dude. And, you know, his passing, I reflect a lot. Anytime I'm in conversations on podcasts and stuff, sometimes his memory comes to me, especially because of the TED Talk. Because when I was writing the talk, Daryl, my friend James called me while I was at the park by a lake with my daughter while she's playing, one of the most beautiful days. And I had opened this valve of emotion to write this talk. So I'm talking about stuff I don't talk about. You know, it's embarrassing. I don't want to paint my mom in a negative light. I want to talk about my brother's business. My brother went to prison for 20 years. I don't want to talk about that. But I did it because I knew it would impact people. But then James called me while I was having this moment and told me about my friend's passing. And when he did that, he called me about Shimmy. The valve opened, Daryl, and it's like the handle broke on it. Like I couldn't close it then. Man. So now it was just like I was feeling this real time, you know, mourning for my friend, but then also at the same time writing this powerful yet emotionally draining, you know, talk. So rest in peace to Shimmy, man, because I believe that his passing at that time, his hand was on my pen while I was writing too.
Wow, that's so powerful, man. It seems like the most powerful experiences happened was at a time where life get the most challenging and uncertainty hit you, and so many things that like fill you with doubt and try to move you away from the direction that you're supposed to be going in. And the fact that I don't know, I genuinely think that it's a powerful space that, especially like in what you just shared, like that's such a powerful space to be in when you presenting your true self like to the world, instead of like putting up a facade of trying to like cover yourself up in a certain way and trying to like look a certain way instead of being human. You know what I mean? Because these are the things that we all share, and these are also all the battles that we deal with like constantly. And going back to what I was just talking about of like succumbing versus like overcoming, that right there and that one little moment, man, like you chose to overcome something that you didn't plan on happening. You're having a great day with your daughter lakeside, and then something in you, it just snapped, and it was like no closing that door. It was never going to be no closing that door, but embracing it for what it is. How challenging was it for you to prepare for that TED Talk?
It was challenging because I think the first level is like my family, right? So this is like people refer to it as the Super Bowl of public speaking.
Man,
It's known
yeah,
as being the stage. No matter how many views your video gets, no matter how big the venue was that you were there, once you land on the stage, it's like a certain stamp of approval that you have as a public speaker, right? It's getting to play in the big game. Now it's a difference from playing in a big game and then showing up in a big game. So I wanted to make sure that if I'm gonna land on the stage, that I want people to feel my message, So the toll that it took on the family was them having to give me space to focus on this, like to write it, to rehearse it. And I think that was the hardest part, like knowing that daddy was going to be, going out to go write or going to rehearse. And then the next layer was just the emotional toll that it took on me. I joke with people. I tell them after I got off the stage, it felt like I had a baby because it was like, ooh, like, I released like all
yeah.
of this weight, and it was now complete, and I can like move on with my regular life, or like move on with a sense of normalcy, I should say. And I think that the rehearsals were more taxing than anything because I was in the car, Daryl, like driving to work, reciting this 12, 13-minute speech, like in tears, because I'm like talking to my mom, I'm talking to my brother, you know what I'm saying? I'm like going through all of the emotions, but also being fully immersed in the experience. So it was challenging, but it was one of the most beneficial challenges I've ever experienced in my life, because who I am at the end of the talk is a different and more, improved version of myself.
Wow. So it's like you grown a lot from literally the moment of you starting to prepare for it all the way up until like literally like right after. It was like a huge change that happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
And still changing, Daryl, and still changing. So like I always raise my hand and always say, not always, but I often say that I am flawed, imperfect, and I'm a work in progress. So a lot of the stuff that I teach, I'm still trying to live, and I have to like check myself sometime. Like, wait a minute, like practice what you preach. Like, what do you about to leave the house and just say goodbye to your kid like that? Like, stop for a minute, turn around, go give him a hug, even if he's mad. Like those kind of moments, I think that's the greatest benefit of the talk, because now I have to hold myself accountable. I have to be like, hey, I can't be out here on the Super Bowl of public speaking talking about people need to be intentional with how they communicate with the people they love, and then I'm sitting here glossing over moments with my kid, scrolling on my phone when I should be present with my daughter. You know what I'm saying? So that's the greatest gift, that I am imperfect, but I'm constantly trying to check myself, based on the experience of creating that talk.
That is such a profound thing that you just said. And I really want people, if you're rewatching this, really go back and listen to what he just said. And him just saying, like, not scrolling on my phone, but engaging with my daughter, being present with my daughter in this and listen, like, people understand this. Being present is the most powerful, most beautiful thing that we can ever experience. Like, truly, truly, truly. How important to you is being intentional, and how important to you is, two-part question, is human connection to you?
It's very important. It's honestly become the foundation of my work. For many years, like I said earlier, like I was pursuing this rap career. I wanted to be a hip hop producer, a hip hop rapper. That was my thing. All the while, little did I know that really all I wanted to do is like share message. All I wanted to do is, give my thoughts, opinions, ideas. And as I went through this journey of like becoming a social media strategist and a marketing professional, and then coming into being a public speaker, I realized that the message started to become very clear, especially with the rise of artificial intelligence. It kind of like me being in the space, seeing how people were interacting with one another, and seeing how human connection was being severely discounted. It was like in the bargain bin. And some would say it still is, right? Like where like really connecting with somebody on a real level, where maybe Years ago online, for example, I'm old school, Daryl. So I started my career on MySpace, right? Back then, we was like, yo, you can talk to people in another country with the internet. Like, this is crazy, right? And we were like, like I was making deals, helping artists to book shows. Like, that's how I started my career. I didn't know I was doing it at the time. I didn't know I was like building my early resume with social media. But what I find today, fast forward to 2025, now where back then when it was like a sense of wonder surrounding how technology could even bring people together like that. Now where we are, we're checking boxes. I got a list of things I need to do. I need to reply to these messages. Let me copy this same message, or let me take it a step further. Let me get an automated system to send these replies to them. Things like, oh, Daryl, I saw that you went to blank school in Newark, New Jersey. We should connect. Do you want to jump on a 15-minute call? I'm like, well, like, what's happening? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for that reason, my work has moved towards human connection. And the priority for me is to be intentional and is to prioritize that authentic human connection.
Do you feel as though you are fighting an uphill battle due to the fact of how people are engaging with technology and using artificial intelligence?
I do. And, I tell people all the time, I'm not anti-AI. I use AI every day. I have like automation for certain things that I'm working on right now as well. However, I think what I try to keep at the forefront of my work and also what I teach is that we can't be in a space where we allow the robots to speak on our behalf when we're trying to build true connections. Now, if you have a huge business, let's say you work for you work at Nike and y'all have some kind of AI automation chatbot that guides people through the customer journey until it's time for a human to come in. I'm not knocking that, right? There's levels to this. Really, my audience are nonprofit organizations, mission-driven leaders, people who are doing really important work and teaching them to prioritize leveraging digital media and social media to bring awareness and get people to support their causes.
Man, that's like so powerful. The one thing, like, it's just crazy. Like that is one thing that I struggle with because I got to get more balance because like I'm at this point as time going on, I'm getting so like anti-technology. Like right before this conversation, I was talking to my little brother. My little brother is probably like, I want to say 12. And I'm sitting there and I'm picking his brain and I'm having a conversation with him about technology. And I'm like, what have you learned from using technology? And he sat there and he really, really thought. He was just sitting there and he was thinking and he couldn't really say anything, to be quite honest. And I'm not saying that you can't learn anything from using technology because it's such a helpful tool. It's one of the greatest things that we've ever like invented and come up with. But it's just like a knife, it's how you use these things that makes it either harmful or helpful. And that, like, when you walk in a room now, you'll most likely see everybody with their heads down on their phones instead of them interacting with each other. And to me, that is such a dangerous thing as time go on. And you are doing something that's going to be greatly needed in society. And I'm not saying this like lightly or, for ego boost. I genuinely mean that. Because people need to know the value that they have within themselves in order to present authentically who they are and to the world. And this brings me to me asking you about your book that you've recently just written, Social Media Saint, and a framework for intentional human connection in the AI era. What inspired you to write this book?
I think the time that we're living in was a big part of it, but I'll say that I was patching together pieces of the book pretty much as soon as I got off the stage. After I got off the TEDx stage, I knew I wanted to write a book. I had thought about writing a book before then. I think the talk inspired me to be like, all right, you know how it goes. You got to be a TEDx speaker, then you got to be an author. It kind of one or the other, and whatever the order is, right? So I knew I always wanted to write a book. I never knew what it would be about. And in 2024, when I gave the talk, although AI had advanced a lot during that time, you know, it's not where it is now, you know, like it's happening so fast. So when I started working on a book, I was actually discouraged after a while because, you know, my talk, they changed the name of my talk. The original name of the talk was How to Live Life with Your Last Words. So at the time, I was working with a company called vidIQ, which is one of the big YouTube software companies. I was one of their founding creator coaches. So I'm like in YouTube culture. I know what to do. Like I studied all of the other TED Talks and came up with this like algorithm proof title, right? And then they zapped me. And when that happened, at the same time, I was texting my entire network so they can watch the talk. And then my phone provider blocked my phone for spam. So at the same time that I didn't have the right title, okay, no problem. But then also I didn't have a phone. So now I was like in this like mud. I was like, dang, like I don't want to work on the book. Then I did an interview with this guy named David. And when I did this interview with David Eady, he started just asking me very good questions, very similar to you, asking me about my childhood and the sync method and everything. And then right then I was like, let me go write this book. Like if that brother could take the time to like do his homework on me and ask those profound questions when I was showing up ready to just talk about social media, then I can provide this book to the people. And that's what pushed me to do it. And I just took the framework from my talk and built it around human connection in the AI era and social media.
Man, that did that process take you a long time to do? To pretty much like lay out all of your ideas, lay out how you wanted to like get your point across and all of that. Did it take you a long time to do that, or was it one of those where once it hit you, you just started like flowing with it?
Yeah, well, I had never wrote a book before, but I did write because I wrote so many rhymes and, essays for college. So I know how to write, but I never wrote a book before. So the first thing I kind of did was I went back and grabbed all of the notes that I had before, right? So see if I could use that stuff. And then I kind of put it all together on one page. And then I would do these like narration trips. So every day on my way to work, I would like just turn on my recorder and start talking my thoughts out loud around the stuff. And then from there, I kind of put it all together in a document, like one long document. It wasn't like broken down by chapters and all of that. It was just like the thoughts as as organized as I could do it, right? As a novice.
Essentially, it was like raw thoughts.
Thoughts, right?
Yeah.
So then after I did that, then I hired an editor. So when I hired the editor helped me to like put it all in. Yeah. So that I don't know how to do. I don't know how to format, make sure it's the right size for Amazon books and all of that kind of stuff. So I hired somebody to do that, and that's how I got the book actually cleaned up and put together.
Man, that's amazing. And if you can you give us one of the methods that's within the book that you have in there that can help the people out with human connection?
Yep. So the one I love the most is in the SYNC method. It's an acronym: simple, yield to your intentions, natural, and change it up for C. My favorite is yield to your intentions. So really what happens in life, right? And maybe you experienced this, Daryl. You're doing the stuff, your life is lifing, you're going through the motions, and you don't necessarily pause for intention on everything, right? Sometimes we move through so fast that little things, even like going to the post office, the lady doesn't give you eye contact. She asks you what you want while she's typing in something. You give her your money, you go. So that was an opportunity, like a human connection opportunity that we just let pass by. The other person wasn't interested in like connecting, so I'm not interested either. However, what yielding to your intention is really taking the time to be like, on every interaction, no matter how large or how small, how important a person is in your life, or how far away from importance they are in life. Having the intention of how you want them to feel, what you want them to do, like how can you make them better off than they were when you connected. And that works for in person and online. In the book, we talk about the online version, but really this is something that could work with your in-person interactions as well. So for example, if I'm going to Walmart now, I know I'm in line. I see the lady there. The lady looks like she's ready to go. She looks sick to her stomach. The guy before me gave her attitude. So when I come up, I can show up a couple of ways. I can show up just like blah, blah, check, let me go. Or I can say, you know what? I want to leave this woman better off than she was before I got here. And I could say something sweet like, hey, I've been here a couple of times. Every time I come here, you're so kind. Don't let that guy bother you. And she might be like, oh my God, I have an ally. Like, I was so mad about that. That's a great way to end my shift. Now I'm not going to go home and beat my kid. Like, whatever it is, right? So the point is, when we have these interactions online or in person, just to take a second to pause, to think about how you want to show up for the person, so that way they can be better off than they were before you had that interaction.
Man, that's actually like pretty great. And this is crazy, like just sitting here thinking about that. By you engaging with like as many people as that you come across in your day, that shifts them in such a positive way. And I think that people underestimate that. And not only that, not even like people don't even like really think about that. People are in their own world, in their own bubble, and this goes back to the importance like of being present and being intentionally present. And something that I want to speak to you on is like the importance of starting your day and ending your day without electronic devices. Can you speak on that for me?
Yep. I do better some days than others. I think because of my field, my work, I'm quite attached to my devices. I got 2 of these bad boys, right? So it's like it's real over here. I would say though that the time periods when I have more clarity are the time periods where I'm not as attached to the phone. For example, there was a time when I was working for a nonprofit in New York City, and I had 2 phones like this. One was work, one was personal. My personal phone was everything. That's where I spent most of my time. The other one was a flip phone, the work phone. And I lost my personal phone. At the time, I was stressed. I was like, oh my God, like somebody got it. Like, where is it? Like, I don't believe they stole my phone. Like, it's over. I lost all my numbers. Like, what am I going to do? Right. So I was stressed. And that was for about a day, maybe 2, maybe 3. By day 3 or day 4, it was like, do you hear that? It's peace and quiet. It's nobody like pinging me. It's nobody like, trying to get at me. Nobody's trying to connect with me on my device. The only issue is that was that for a while, my dad was like, it's hard to get you sometime. I'm like, call me on my work phone. He's like, I know, but like, I call your phone. When are you going to get your phone back? I was like, I'm not getting my phone back. So Daryl, for probably about, I don't know how long I did it. It was a while though. It was probably like a month or 2. I was like, nah, I'm good. I was like, I don't need a phone. And it was one of the most peaceful periods of my life. I never forget it. And they had to like it was really my dad. My dad was like, I'm buying you a phone. He's like, here, take this. He bought me like a Galaxy or something. I was like, all right, I guess I'll take it. And I still have that number to this day.
Oh man, nice, man. And I've been speaking on this. I want to say like going on like a month and a half. Just encouraging people that when you first wake up in the morning, just try to give yourself 1 minute to 5 minutes max of just being present with yourself. 1 to 5 minutes max, and like try the best that you can. When you go to sleep, to do the same thing, 60 seconds to 5 minutes. And I know, like for example, it's so hard when you wake up to just not want to reach for your phone. You know what I mean? Whether it's alarms going off, whether you're sitting there checking your social media feed, checking notifications that happen overnight. But it's such a powerful experience when you, especially coming out of like being all loopy from like dreaming of like 1 minute to 5 minutes of breathing and really focusing in on how you're feeling, checking in with your body, no matter if you got crazy thoughts or feelings that's going on, just simply being aware to it. Don't even like identify with it, but just starting off your day with spending some time with yourself before you give everything to the world without even like realizing that you're doing that. So like even that right there, I've experienced like myself that the most peaceful like time is when the phone is like not near me. You know what I mean? I've got a one-track mind like myself. So if I'm engaged in something, and especially like if I'm on my phone or other people, I lose track of literally every single thing that's around me. It's like really hard for me to like multitask. But I find myself now, which is like it's starting to become a issue of like I tune my phone out like so much. I tune it out and I try to the best that I can to like be present to the people that's around me and everything that's going on. And the challenging thing that's been going on with that is just that the whatever's going on the phone, it pulls at you. It literally pulls at you to the point where it's just like it's either engage in this or engage in the person that's right in front of me. Because it's hard for me to be on my phone and talking to somebody at the same time. One has to give. What advice can you give the people in regards to dealing with like the distractions that come on the phone versus like interacting with people in their daily lives?
I think there's different levels based on, the relationship. So like for me, I'm a dad, right? So I'm a 2-time dad. So there's a certain amount of like safety stuff that I need to be accessible for, like if my kids' school calls and stuff like that. So that's one thing. But if you're finding yourself like struggling with the notifications and just the noise online, I would encourage people to kind of like streamline what they're doing online. For example, if you are on every social media platform, maybe just choose one. You know what I'm saying? Your account will be there. You don't have to be on it. You can uninstall the app and always like come back and get it later. So if you find that you have your head down more than you have your head up in life, you might want to consider maybe, boiling down your social media intake to maybe focus on 1 or 2 platforms. That'd be my advice.
And now we're about to get a little serious. I wanted to ask you about your faith. How did you come into the faith, and how do you maintain your walk in your faith nowadays?
Thanks for asking that. So I'm a Christian. I grew up. My mom and dad, as West Indians coming to America, we started in a Catholic church. I went to like Catholic school, 1st grade, kindergarten, I believe even 2nd grade. And then from there, my father remarried. And by the time I was in middle school, I was going to an African Methodist Episcopal church, very different than a Catholic church. So God bless my stepmom, who I affectionately call my mother, right? She introduced church into my life in a more consistent way, as opposed to the way my mom and dad did when I was young. We would go to like mass or something when it was like a holiday, where my stepmom, she had us in church every Sunday. Not only were we in church, we was in, youth church, we was in Bible study, we was in revival, we was like traveling to other churches. Like it was like the whole Southern Black church experience, you know what I'm saying? So that was like my early relationship with church. But because of that, I was always a little resistant because it was like I was a kid. I didn't want to go. They had to drag me. I was like, oh my God. But I knew I had a connection with God. I felt it. For example, there was one time where they had the kids come up and they asked if any of us wanted to volunteer to like, say a prayer. So for me, I must have been in the 4th or 5th grade. I was a bit of an actor back then. So I get up there and I kind of make a mockery of it. I'm like, I'm acting like a preacher, and I'm like, and the Lord told me, and they're like, yes, Lord, yes, Lord. And I'm like peeking, like, oh, they're into this, that Jesus would come one day, and they're like, all right, boy, right? So I'm doing this whole deal performing 4th, 5th grade, and after I finish, the pastor calls my mom, and she's like, Sister Ivy, Sister Ivy, that boy's been touched. He needs to go to preacher school. I was like, oh no. So my mom was like, do you want to go to preacher school? I was like, nah, I don't want to go.
No.
But I knew that there was something there, you know what I mean? And then later on in life, I still had my faith, but I wasn't actively practicing until, again, when my son was born. When my son was born, I was like, I got to get my son into church. So that brought us back to church. My wife, even, she wasn't going to church when we met, but since then her faith is as strong as ever. She volunteers at the church. I'm going to start volunteering at the beginning of August with a 4th grade group after like years of putting it off, knowing that I need to like give back in some way because God is calling me to do that work. And I have experience working with young men. So I'm going to just chalk it up and like that's the priority. I've received so much from the church. My son right now is in Florida doing a high school trip with like 1,000 church kids, which is insane. Wow. Yeah. And my daughter, if she misses church, she's mad. She's like, what? She's like, what? Why did we go to church today? So for me, for them to have that experience is one of my favorite parts about, being connected to the church and walking in my faith.
Man, you passed on something beautiful to the next generation, man. You really, really did. They're going to eventually be beacons of light among like this thick cloud of darkness that we like surrounded in. I believe that it's very, very important for people to have faith in God, faith in Christ, and not only that, for people that possess the truth, that they show that to the world. You know what I'm saying? That's super, super important. And that should be the foundation of like, us that's walking in the faith, and when you got that how can I put this? When God gave you your true calling, were you originally resistant to it when you got that true calling from God?
Maybe initially when I was younger, yeah. I think in this walk of life, or in this season of life, I should say, I try to be, more obedient, even with this situation with the volunteering. Like, I put this off for a couple of years. My family, we've benefited greatly from being members of this church, and then our pastor, and even my pastor, like my pastor's so cool. Like, I'll email him and be like, yo, let's, can we get up for lunch? I want to talk to you about something. Before I had my TEDx talk, honestly, he sat with me and like, he's a professional speaker. Like, he gets up every Sunday and has to give a big talk to we go to a pretty big church, thousands of people. And he sat with me. So all of this tons of value that they pour into me and my family, I was still like resistant to it. So I still struggle with my obedience. It's something that I want to get better at, because the thing about it, as people walk through life, they know when they're supposed to do the right thing. It's like always clear. You can feel it in your bones, right? But sometimes you let the world get in the way. And that, again, I'm imperfect and I'm trying to get better, and I'm trying to walk in obedience, with God, with what God wants me to do.
Man, that was like such a real answer, man. Like, that's something that like we definitely like all struggle with, especially myself as well, man. Is like it's a crazy thing that we all built with a moral compass within us of knowing genuinely what's right and what's wrong, knowing that there is truths and there's lies. And something that part of it feels like, for me personally, and a part of like my calling, is to point people in that direction of being very, very clear on what that thing inside of them is pointing them to do. And it's when you act on it, it's either going to let you know that you made the right decision or the wrong decision, and encouraging people that that first and foremost, you, in order to serve your purpose, and this is something, and this speaking on like it's being obedient. I was resistant to that for like the last. I've been doing this purpose serve thing for like the last 5 years, and I was born into the faith and all of that. But something in me, I did the best that I personally could to separate the two, as if there wasn't supposed to be one. And within the last 4 to 5 months, it's been something in me due to the fact of the situations that I place myself in, the people that's been around, that it's like, you know, the right order of things. And no matter what's going on outside of you, you have to move accordingly to that. And this is what I mean by that, is knowing that whatever I'm doing, God has to be first above all else and anything else before I absolutely do anything. And me knowing that. And by this, I knew that my relationships with my friends was going to change. I knew that my relationship with my family was going to change. And I was going to be placed in situations that I can't even like. It's truly the Abraham walk, man. It's truly the Abraham walk of like truly walking by faith and not by sight. And even still to this day, even right now to this day, it's very, very challenging knowing that, like, for me to even be having this conversation with you, it's like insane. Something that I wouldn't have done if you was a guest 2 years ago. We would have never came across of having this type of conversation. But it's crazy how the world actually works. And once we find our purpose within God, who is the creator of all creation, then the light which came through his son literally shows us the way of where we must go. And instead of going based off of what our physical eyes see, rather than looking through our spiritual eyes. And it's something that, yet again, I'm sounding like a broken record here, but this is why, like, what you're doing is super important, because human connection is something that's like, it's built in us. We share a common bond with living this thing called life. We share the same common troubles and same struggles, but it's about living out the truth and living out the light that's within us until the very, very end, no matter what. And it's meant to change lives, and it's meant to impact people's lives in a crazy way. Like, you already impacted my life, believe it or not. You know what I mean? For me, just like a little brief interactions within these last couple of months. But I seen you and I seen the work that you're doing, and I'm like, man, this would be a great person to have as a guest on this podcast, man. Because even now, like, you shed so much importance on, you know, what it truly means to be a human being, and also the source of where all of this like comes from, man. So I also want to thank you for sharing your story and sharing your faith as well. I appreciate it, man. Seriously.
Yep. Daryl, really quick, I have another call I'm late for. My apologies, man.
No, you're good. This is the hour. So listen up, everybody. All this information will be in the description below. Serve your purpose. And Robin, man, thank you for being on the podcast, man.
Oh, I love it. Daryl, I got a gift for your audience, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
If you guys would kindly visit landthetalk.com, I'm going to give you 2 free ebooks, a checklist for social media, as well as a free preview of my book, including the introduction, the foreword, and the first chapter, just for you to experience it. And if you wanted to go forward and purchase it, there's information there as well. And it's also gives you access to my email list. So if you respond to the first message you get, that'll be me.
All right, I appreciate that. They will have access to it, and I thank you for you being on here, man. And I hope to speak to you soon, man.
Thank you, Daryl. I appreciate you, my brother. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job, man.
I appreciate it. Have a great day, man. Thank you.
All right, my brother. Thank you.
Have a good one.